Hey guys, it's Matt. This is a TPS report video. Bill's poster will remain up for the entire presentation. Bill's poster is timely. He presents the D wave here chasing kids. We'll look at the poster in a second, but I'm using this. It's timely because Zane's comment or email also starts out, when I read it to you, talking or using the example of Jordy Rose's snow cone machine, the D wave. Zane's email slash comment is one of the best of the year, and I have to talk about it as soon as possible. It's so clear what he's saying here. I've never mentioned it. I've never noticed it. It's incredible. First, let's look at Bill's most recent poster. If you're like on a phone or something, you won't be able to read this. I'll read it to you. He's relating the D wave and this sort of technology to something he's very much against, what we call the AI art, quantum or stable diffusion, Midjourney, DALL-E. Bill will never use those programs, and he recommends nobody use those programs. But at least what's being presented here, the D wave, it's coming out of the forest, it looks like, but the forest is matrix code. It's running after kids with octopus tentacles. It says in the magenta, "Come back, kids. I just want to play with you. I'm as safe as email and YouTube. I promise. I'm almost free, just $33 to join. Everybody's doing it." That's a reference to you can join Midjourney for $40 a month, and it's not unlimited rendering, but you can get a lot for $40 a month. And on the left side there, the emerald green D-Wave artificial intelligence is basically a Ouija board to Bill. Kurzweilian D-Wave snow cone machine at the bottom. Notice the only art in the piece of shit that he would say Stable Diffusion makes is art in artificial. Bill is highly against the AI art. Thank you for this poster, Bill. It also contains a Ouija board embedded into the D-Wave cube as well as the Baphomet head. Okay, let me read you Zane's comment, or it was an email to me. Matt, I had another thought on stalled century, and it relates to Jordy Rose's snow cone machine. At the turn of the last century, science and technology was accessible to people. At the turn of the last century, science and technology was accessible. Farmers were making crystal radios in their barns and contacting each other. This was the soul of the Industrial Revolution. People were making things for themselves. Anytime anybody does anything for themselves, it threatens the Notnilc and the creeps. It's a drive towards a pacification of creator beings like us. They needed to remove us from the scientific and truth process. How did they do that? Simple. They made its pursuit inaccessible to people. Take space, for example. It doesn't matter what you believe it to be or not to be for this example. This is, say, space and all that's going on. That's the next level of technology as they present it. It's not accessible to you and me. It's not accessible to farmers in Iowa because you need a rocket. You need a level of technology to dabble in it. It's one more area, no matter what you believe it to be, one more area that's for them, not for you. Same with the D-Wave in quantum computing. No matter what you believe that to be, it's still a presentation of something incredibly sophisticated that you don't understand. You proletariat, you great unwashed. He didn't write that. I'm filling in a few things, taking some liberties with the basis or core of the email. He goes on to say, it's the same with microbiology, virology. Oh, you don't own the electron microscope. You leave that up to us. CERN and the Large Hadron Collider. The list goes. You don't have this device. Let us take care of you. The list goes on and on and on, and he's exactly right. These, quote, billion-dollar machines are a way to remove our power and remove our confidence. After all, they've got the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. What possible knowledge could we have, the little people, that they do not? So, like, from your inner knowing perspective, just like what happened to me, when you heard Zane's email or when I read it, I'm sure you just did what I did immediately. That's exactly right. I mean, we just knew that's exactly right. And I'm thinking, I've never talked about this or presented this, and I can't say it's obvious because I've never heard anybody put it that way. So thank you, Zane. But what's interesting about it is it's almost like, let's just go back to the creepy table. It's almost like they have a checkbox for each major area of technology, a technology that will move culture and society into a certain direction, whether it be computers, again, space, medicine, whatever it may be. And it's like, how many boxes have we checked? Have we gotten the research to an area where the people won't even not only stop dabbling in it for themselves, won't even try to understand it anymore because the presentation is just so ultra sophisticated. And Zane would say, like, in some cases, he might believe that the D-Wave is just a raccoon in there pedaling. There's nothing to it. Or he may believe that you go to the CERN Hadron Collider, and what it is, if you go down below, those sushi conveyor belts, the sushi keeps coming by you in certain restaurants, so you can take pieces. It might be the world's largest sushi conveyor belt. He's saying there's some credibility to some of these things, but for many of them, there is none. They just have to get the perception in the public that they've reached this ridiculous level of technology and advancement where not only are you little people, go back into your barn and clear a field, they'll say to us, not only do you should just stop dabbling in it, you don't even understand it anymore. And you're too dumb. This is them talking to us, I believe. You're too dumb for us to explain it to you. So go back and clear your fields and get on your Xbox and just be happy we provide you with those fun and games. And again, the idea is for each facet of culture and society to make it so complicated and sophisticated, whether it's real or not. There might be nothing at all behind the curtain, but to get people to believe it's so complicated and sophisticated that not only will they'll stop paying attention to it, they'll turn it over to the experts. Oh, I can't pay attention to that. The principle to me seems like if you make it or push it past a certain level of complexity, even if that level of complexity is artificially created, then the people will relax. It's in the hands of good experts. I keep thinking about the people riding in the back of a plane, especially if they're a little bit afraid of flying. What's going on with the aeronautics and how the damn plane gets in the air and the engines, and you hear something about all the controls are fly-by-wire now, and what's happening in the cockpit is so sophisticated, people don't even try to figure it out. It's so sophisticated, it becomes almost relaxing. They just put their seat back and, especially if they're a little afraid, just go to sleep. And that's what they want people to do in every single facet of society, go to sleep. So throw a dart. Okay, let's see if this applies to all the different facets of society and culture. Okay, finance. Absolutely, it applies. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, all these stories started to come out, 60-minute stories about how the computers and their algorithms were doing the trading. And they're jumping in and out of stocks in a millisecond. And brokerage houses were actually moving their brokerage to get so close to the T1 line or whatever it is. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, though. They're so close that even though the trades are the speed of light, if they get a little closer, they can make 1/1000th of a penny for each trade, and that adds up to hundreds of millions of dollars. And they've been presenting this computer trading and how sophisticated stocks and Wall Street, people just gave up, most people, and said, I'm out of it. I'm gonna put my money in Fidelity in a mutual fund, and they know what they're doing, and I'll just turn it over to them. In the case of like stock market stuff, it's not a facade. It's real. It did become ridiculous where all the computers were doing the trading. That's a great way to control it back at the master supercomputer. If you want to take the market up or down or gold up or down, if it's all computer related, I mean, of course, it gives them more control. It's not smoke and mirrors in this area. There's actually something that was making it sophisticated. The computer trading was, quote, real. But either way, the mission, it was mission accomplished. Just leave it up to us, you dummies. Now, go back 30 years ago or 25 years ago, and all that, was it Peter Drucker? He was the mutual fund manager for Fidelity Magellan, and he would say simple, you won't hear this shit anymore, common sense things. This doesn't apply anymore, of course, but he would say, buy what you know. It was still a presentation. It was still a bunch of bull crap. if you ask me. Like, if you go in and have a good experience at this restaurant and it's a stock company, and you go back and you have another great experience, and then go and you have a great feel for the product, go buy it and hold it for 10 years. And that's how Warren Buffett made his billions. And again, I don't know if I buy all that crap either. The point is, it was at least a simple presentation. You won't ever, the way this Notnilc has advanced, you won't ever in any facet of culture hear the Notnilc making a simple presentation like buy and hold what you know. That's all gone. If I throw another dart in another facet of culture, the one it just landed in, I can't talk about directly. I'm going to have to be so roundabout here, but it'll just be a few minutes, and we'll move on to another aspect of society they're trying to complicate on purpose. What is going on now with the renting of the Carl Jackson? That's not his name. What's his name? Carl Weathers. I'm confused now. Carl Weathers, who was Apollo and Rocky, he was in Action Jacksonation, the renting of the Action Jacksonation 2-part movie. And there's actually punky boosters associated. Matt, get through this hobo code. You're going to drive people away from this channel. Okay, look what's happening now, how sophisticated. People don't know what's going on. If you ask. If you ask, that's what Philly. If you ask the guy or woman on the street, how's the renting of the 2-part movie, how's it protecting you? What exactly is going on in your body? They won't know. They will have no clue. They might be able to spout some terms, but they don't know. Even this is following the same trajectory, where if you go back 100 years ago, whatever it was, 85 years ago, there was a smallpox a pandemic or epidemic that struck the United States and a lot of countries. Maybe it goes back to the late 1800s. Smallpox. Okay, I know from a hardcore truther perspective, there's a segment that if Matt doesn't say everything in this world is fake, and you admit that one thing actually happened, oh, you're not one of us. I knew Matt wasn't one of us. Everything has to be fake. No, I believe, and and people actually had physical symptoms of being inflicted by smallpox. It doesn't matter anyway for the point of this presentation. What they did made sense to people. They started with what was called cowpox. You take something from that and you put it in here or you put it in your body, and it helps the immune response. It's a weak thing that then fools the body to produce antibodies or whatever. It made sense to people, right? What was happening. Now, I don't know, but the smart people are in control, and I know they would never do anything that wouldn't be the best for me. They don't have they just put their seat back, go to sleep, and let Dr. F whatever fly the plane. It's the same thing per Zane's email in every single facet of society. Let me get another dart out, throw this one behind my back. Vomp. It's stuck in a little Post-it note that says, the space shuttle /ISS. Oh, this is a good one. Forget the ISS for now. Let's go back to the space shuttle and that presentation, that Dorney Park ride or that Dutch Wonderland ride every time it went up. What is one thing they always talked about on the news whenever that Hershey Park ride went up? They would say, oh, they're performing these experiments on it. And the experiments need to be performed in space. These experiments to take technology in these areas to a different level need to be performed in a vacuum or in zero G or wherever they're performing. See, that means you can't perform the experiments here, and you can't go out to your barn and perform the experiment. We got to do it up there. And all those experiments, can anybody tell me one, for anybody that's under age 35, Matt, that's that same age again. You can't, I'm telling you, everybody remembers that's my age. Every time that damn Dorney Park ride went up, they're going to do this experiment, or they're participating with the Michigan State University, or Harvard has this little petri dish they're sending up, and they're going to track this and that. All these experiments. After 15, 20 years of space shuttle experiments, you know what came out of it? Right from Point Break. Squat. Absolutely squat. Well, Matt, those experiments didn't even get off the ground. I hear you. That's why they can't produce anything. They probably couldn't produce anything anyway. Where they're in their blue screen, green screen room, and they have inflatable petri dishes. They weren't even real, like the way they used to inflate tanks to throw off the Germans in World War II. Does this look real on camera? Like I'm really performing an experiment? Good, go with it. That petri dish isn't inflated. Inflate petri dish number 3. Squat. Nobody can say anything that came from any of these experiments. And between their pizza parties and flying around with gorilla suits and playing the cello up there and whatever else they do in the ISS, they perform these experiments, and again, nothing comes out of it. Matt, nothing even got off the ground. I hear you. But don't forget the main point here, that if experiments need to be performed in that environment, you don't have $100 billion of infrastructure to duplicate that environment. Oh, then you can't dabble in these experiments. You need to leave that to us. You need to leave that to authority. That's the presentation, and that's what Zane's saying, and he's so right. I'm convinced we could throw a dart in every. I don't know if we'll keep throwing the darts figuratively, but it'll come out this way in every single area. And in our communities, we've heard these stories since we've been doing this. Every 5 or 10 years, you see a YouTube video, or when they were loud, or you hear something about a guy or somebody in their barn making some sort of a little free energy machine of some kind, or something that, if real investment could go into it, that could lead to free energy. And of course, these exist. They could have free. We could have had free energy a long time ago, of course. But we've heard the stories, somebody would still go about making some sort of machine in their barn or wherever. I haven't heard those stories anymore, not that they would ever make social media, and those people probably sooner rather than later are paid a visit. They get a knock on the door by Tommy Lee Jones. Sir, we hear you're making a machine, and you didn't license that. You didn't ask for permission before build. Of course, anybody that built anything that could be with the right investment, moved into something that would create free energy. Of course, that has been they snuffed that out probably weeks after the guy invented it. But the point is, I guess the point related to the theme here is how many of those inventors aren't even trying anymore? Where, like, deep down, again, since from birth, these people thought, well, I don't have the $100 billion infrastructure. I can't take my experiments into space. It's like a beating down of the next generation that may dabble in free energy. Have people stopped going, I'm not even going to try that anymore because I don't have the infrastructure? Who knows? Because we have heard these stories. Well, look, they've had it for a long time, but somebody creates like a little device or something, and somehow back in the old days, 2005, 2006, some of these videos got out before the Men in Black showed up to shut it down. Throw a dart over here, vomp. Agriculture. Seeds. This applies in every single area. We're not even going to keep doing this. Every single area. Not only will they try to dissuade you, it's way beyond that. They'll come in and shut you down with more Tommy Lee Joneses. There's a farmer over here trying to combine crops on his own and trying to get a better yield with this technique, or trying to work with this seed to do this. You first of all, they don't try to dissuade people anymore. They'll come in and say, legally, you can't even do that. You need to use this goddamn Monsanto seed, dude. And then they want you to say back, say, dude, that would be out of sight. You got more ADM, Arthur Daniels, Midland products for me? I don't even have to think about it. Say, dude, you got ADM, that would be out of sight. Give me your shit. I'll put it in the ground. I'll do what you say. All ingenuity, all human creativity. It's stamped out across the board. And at the first grade truther level, it's about money and this. But if you back up enough to where we are, it's about a general theme of destroying all human, what they call us, ingenuity, imagination, and creativity. Now, in terms of how far will they take it, they're the Terminator. They'll never stop. They will take it up until the point where people will push back. And that point is almost at zero, where the Whopper computer will say, we can't quite do that. I mean, this seems ridiculous, this example, but who knows? If you've done this as long as we have, you almost would say that this example is actually possible someday. I remind you that in many states, you need a license, state to state, to be an interior decorator. In some states, you need a license to hang curtains for somebody. and the Whopper computer's spitting back, I can't believe that people are putting up with this one. So here's a ridiculous example, but how ridiculous is it? 5 years from now, 15 years from now, hairstylists, they're going to get directives from the ministry that gives out the licenses to barbers and hairstyles that say, there's a violation. You had a client that came in with red hair and bangs, and you created this hairstyle. That's not allowed. Red hair and bangs, you can only do these 3 things. This is what they do to doctors. If the person's sick this way, you have 3 options. Doctors, how far will they take it? I know this seems absurd, but is it? How crazy these mo-effers are. 15, 20 years from now, you get a big warning, a big violation in the mail as a hairstylist that you did the wrong things with bangs and red hair that you're not allowed to do. Ridiculous? I don't know anymore. You've heard me say, respect to the Notnilc in a way, because it is evil genius beyond compare in how it does business. It's always right at that line. It will always do just enough where it almost knows exactly what it can get away with before the people, or not before the people push back, knowing that the people will push back. It never errs on the side of like leaving 30, 40% on the plate or on the table. It knows right up to the limit where to take society and culture, just to the point where people will not push back. I mean, is that what happened with C the V? Like, hey, we gotta lay off the the gas, the accelerator here for a bit. Now with they know, and they always are right on that line. And it is an evil genius how precise they are with that line. It's easy for the first grade truther to run their scripts, and here come the scripts, and the rubber duckies are being thrown. Matt, the people will put up with anything at this point. No, they won't. No, they won't. Let's take it to the extreme. President Biden comes out a year ago in the middle of this thing and said there's a whole army of people they will show up at your home once a week with rubber gloves, and you will go they need to take a swab with a rubber glove, up your nose with a rubber hose. What was that? Who said that? Barbarino or whatever. They're gonna take a different type of swab, and they need to they put their finger. Come on. I mean, I know that's ridiculous, but it's first grade truth that people will put up with anything. No, they won't. Okay, they'll put up with a magnitude more than we can possibly fathom that they will put up with. But the point of this last segment is it knows exactly how far to go before it takes, backs down the RPMs or the accelerator like it's doing now. Throw another dart. Teaching and education, K through 12. My God, they even did it to teachers. Now, even going back to when I was in high school, of course, there's a very strict curriculum that if you are pre-college and you want to go off to college by, ninth grade, you do your algebra, and 10th grade, you do your trigonometry, and, it was all within a box even back then. But that box, there's too much wiggle room for the Notnilc's liking, too much chance for human creativity and imagination. They've tightened it up. They've tightened that screw up 1,000 turns into whatever Common Core. And even the teachers don't even understand how to teach it. They just know how to follow the steps and the instructions. And if math teachers are like, I don't want to teach math this way, but I have to. It's incredible how they've put the screws in terms of taking any sort of flexibility, which is derived from creativity and being what we are intended to be in this life. And I'm not going to throw any more darts because this applies in every single area. But a reminder to the theme here regarding teaching, the teachers are like, I'm not even going to try to put my own spin on this because I can't or I'll get in trouble. They're just following the steps. And again, it's to get people to stop trying. They're still going to go to work. They'll still care, but they're not going to try to figure it out. And then ultimately, I'm sure even most teachers say, well, they know more than me. There must be a reason for how all this is being laid down so systematically. When you find out every single facet of culture is to make it so sophisticated and so strange that the people on the ground, the regular people, stop trying and just go along with what they're told. You've heard me say a few times, the reality gives itself away. And if anybody's new, you would say gives itself away as blank, as artificial, as not natural or organic to fit the experience we're supposed to have here in our short time on what this place is called Earth. It gives itself away in this area more than in any other area. If I were to ask you, anybody listening to the sound of the words that are coming out of my mouth, is there anything you could think of that's kind of presented by the Notnilc or run by the Notnilc that is not moving towards complexity and chaos, or at least not returning to its simple roots? Yeah, if 20 people go off and live together in a commune off grid, well, that's 20 people deciding to do their own thing. I'm talking about a Notnilc presentation. And go all the way down the sliding scale. Go down to NFL football offenses. Everything moves towards complexity and chaos. All this shifting along the line, and they're so sophisticated, these offenses. The damn quarterback's got a damn wristband with all these numbers, and the defense has a wristband to figure out what defense to play. It always moves towards complexity. This is not it because it has to. These are the chaos lords, essentially, from the Michael Moorcock book. Don't laugh. He didn't ask for that name. Michael Moorcock, the British science fiction author, wrote the Elric series. This Notnilc today pretty much is the Chaos Lords from that book series, trying to turn every realm or move it as close as they can into a realm of absolute chaos. Very similar to where Dr. Weir from Event Horizon described where that ship went and came back. I mean, so again, like even sports, it always complicated. What happened to just having a better offensive line and pushing people off the ball and running up the middle? I mean, if you're good enough, guess what? You can do that. If you are good enough, and maybe if you get good at by practicing it instead of a million different plays and a million different shifts. I know I keep using football, but you could see this applies across the board to everything. So when I say the reality gives itself away, another example that literally gives the reality away. I don't know what anybody would say to this. Will you ever hear an announcement, or have you ever heard an announcement, even at the state level or federal level, that says, this is too complicated and we care about your time and we're going to simplify this for you, whatever it may be. I'm just thinking of the new national ID to a state driver's license. Of course, now it's more complicated. Happened to me a year ago. I was like, do I want to renew my state ID, or do I get this national, whatever it is, federal ID? What is it called? The real ID, real girl ID, real ID it's called. It was all complicated, and at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not going to go anywhere anyway, so just give me the renewal on the state driver's license. So it's another level of complexity. What I was saying a minute or two ago, you'll never hear an announcement, and you never have heard an announcement where they come out and say, you know what, this is crazy, we're going to simplify this for you, for the people. And then they actually implement it, and it works. I'm sure they've said it, but did it work when they implemented it? Of course not. Because you could say to the person on the street, give me one example where they said they were going to simplify your lives, and they did. And if somebody will not be able to come up with an example across the board for their entire lives, and they'll have an excuse, of course. I'll say no normal person would say any real world would do that. There'd be a 1 out of 100 you'd get a win, 99 you'd lose, but 1 out of 100 government might work and simplify something. It never has happened, and everybody knows deep down it never will happen, because that's not what the role of the Chaos Lords is. So you present that to my friend Tony, or your cousin, or the person on the street, and at first it would kind of make sense, like, yeah, they've never offered to simplify and successfully simplified anything. But then the scripts will start, or even the human download will start. There's always an excuse. Well, Matt, see, at this point in modern society, it's become too complicated, and no one man or woman can fix it. And there's always in government going to be inefficiency and waste. This is just the modern society we have now, Matt, that we have to live in. I mean, someday maybe a great person will come along and fix it, but there's politicians, they go to Washington with the best intentions, and they get corrupted, and it's just the way it is, Matt. They'll just run their scripts. No. It's not the way it is. I mean, take me right back to the Trump drain the swamp BS. reality gave itself away on that day, the inauguration. If anything were real, you've heard me say this if you've been with me a long time, if anything were real, he would have gave a 1-minute speech. He would have just been sworn in, if anything were real, and he said, I came here to drain the swamp, and I'm going right to the Oval Office. I'm going to have 150 executive actions, anything I can do within the confines of the law, and I'm going to have a list of 100 things that Congress needs to do to cut back on this behemoth and restore your rights. And we're going to call the Congress people out daily until they do it. Nothing happened. I mean, Trump's administration by itself was reality giving itself away. And there's still millions of these absolute morons believing that Trump is like maneuvering to do something. This is literal insanity to me. And they'll bring him back again for another term. And we'll go through the whole thing all over again. I just thought of the T-shirt that was sent me. I will wear it again. Well, it's getting cold. I'm not going to be wearing too many T-shirts. Just a dumbass black sweatshirt. But the T-shirt says, jump for joy if you're not compatible with what's on the news, with what your friends believe. This is not bullshit, guys. I'm trying to, as you can tell, I'm trying to close with good news because it is good news from our perspective. You're separating from it, which means you're not compatible with it, which is great, great news. Thanks for listening.